Hello everyone and welcome back to day 2 of our F125 Hotlap and Setup series. This time around, of course, on the wet circuits inside F125. Today we return here to Shanghai. Of course, this place a lot of long flowing traction zones that are really tricky to get right in the dry and even more difficult to try and get right in the wet conditions. Now, first and foremost, let me just make it very clear, this is arguably the worst combo inside F125. If you're racing against the AI, they are going to be stupidly OP. They're normally, in changeable conditions, they can be up to like 2 seconds a lap faster than the human player. Shanghai is also one of their best circuits inside the entire game as well, but hopefully kind of these wet setups will help you manage those changeable conditions a little bit more difficult, a little bit more easily as well there. So fingers crossed this one helps you out. Of course, as always, timestamps will be linked down in the description below if you just want to head to a certain part of the video. As always, we'll go through, I'll talk you guys through a lap of the circuit, I'll show you the setup, and then I'll leave you with a hot lap at the end of the video. We are getting mighty close to 13,000 subscribers here on the channel at the moment, so please do make sure you hit that sub button. And also, I'm going to work on like a Google Sheet that you can all access as well. That will mean you can basically just log onto there and see all of the setup numbers in the near future as well. So I'm going to be working on that behind the scenes, so hopefully that is going to be useful. But yeah, let's head out onto the circuit then, and I'll talk you guys through the track. We'll making our way then up in towards the final corner. I actually find this final turn here in Shanghai easier to do in the wet than in the dry, just because it's obviously quite a lot slower, and you've got to try and really make sure you nail it. Fourth gear on the exit, try and get on the throttle nice and early. Around here though, because tyre management is going to be quite tricky, you want to just avoid wheel spin at all costs. You're going to be up into 8th gear by the time you get down in towards turn 1. You want to be braking just as you go over the pit lane exit line before you cycle the car down. I like to bring it all the way down into 4th gear nice and early, and then just as you get over this little lip halfway through the corner, bring it down to 3rd. Keep slowing the car down nice and gently into 2nd gear by the time we get through the apex of turn 1. Leave it in 2nd through turn 2 as well, and just try to hug the inside line as best as you can. I would always rather go kind of quite tight on the exit, short shift back up through 3rd and 4th gear, and then allow the car to run wide out onto the curbing on the exit. You're going to be all the way up in 6th by the time we get through the kink down the hill, braking at about 110 meters out, just a little bit earlier than your dry reference point. All the way down to 2nd, get the car nice and tidy on the exit, and then just as you get it straightened up, try and get on the loud pedal once again. Be really careful though. Again, you can find a lot of wheel spin off of that corner. Up into 6th gear, I will then downshift it to 5th. You get a little bit more weight over the nose as you try and rotate it through the first part of the S's, and then through the second part as well. You're going to be bringing it down another couple of gears into 3rd. Try and again hug the curb, but don't actually use the curb. Otherwise, you're going to go spinning. And then just as you get past that little grey bit of runoff area, you want to bring the car down to 2nd to slowly rotate it through. Get the bike from the front, leave it in 2nd on the exit, and then just as you get to this curb, up through 3rd gear, and then up through 4th gear. Similar to kind of what you have to do on the exit of the first snail section as well, of obviously just being really careful on it, avoiding the wheel spin as best as you can. Up in towards Sector 3, they'll brake just before the 100 meter board. You're going to go from 5th gear, I believe, all the way down to 2nd. Again, try to get a nice late apex. Avoid taking too much curb on the inside, otherwise it would just throw the back end around. Leave it in 2nd gear through the exit, and then just be very careful as you try and get on the loud pedal. Short shift up through 3rd gear, and then up through 4th as well, and then try to get the power down nice and tidily on the exit there. Up through 5th, and of course as we make our way down the back straight, we are going to get all the way into top gear as well there. So just keep the car over on the left hand side. Of course, if DRS has been enabled, make sure you activate that, because why wouldn't you? And then in towards these final couple of corners, you've again just got to be really careful that you don't lock the fronts up. You want to brake about 120 meters out, so about where the DHL sign is. That is my reference point in towards this final couple of corners. Down into second gear. Again, try to be very, very careful of avoiding wheel spin on the exit. Luckily, this corner opens up on the exit, so you can get on the loud pedal nice and early once more. And then one more corner to go. You're going to be fifth gear on entry, brake just under the Lenovo gantry, down into fourth, attack the curbing on the inside nice and tidy. You can use the curb on the exit, but just make sure you get the car nicely flattened out over it. Full throttle on the run back towards the line, and that is going to be a lap then here of the Shanghai circuit. Like I said, you know, tyre wear actually should be your best friend here. The AI seem to struggle a little bit more than I do. But this circuit is all about wheel spin. Avoid cooking those rear tyres. Otherwise, you're going to be in a world of hurt as well. But anyway, let's head back to the pit lane, and I'll talk you guys through the setup. Well, having a look then through our setup numbers, as you can see, ever so slightly higher wing than what we're running in the dry conditions. Of course, the AI, they're going to be an absolute missile in a straight line here. There's just nothing you can do about it, especially in the wet. They can just get the throttle down so much earlier out onto that back straight. If you feel confident everywhere else around the lap, you could run this down at like 27, 24. But honestly, especially if you're doing league races, I would say leave it a little bit higher because it is just the quickest way to get around this venue. You'll also have a lot more bite through the middle sector as well, and that can be very, very useful when it comes to managing tyre temperature around this circuit as well. Transmission settings 80-35. Fairly normal to what I run on this game. The on throttle, of course, yeah, you just want to make sure that, once again, you can rotate the car on the corner exits. If you're really struggling with wheel spin, I would maybe lower this to like 75 or even 70, and then the off throttle differential, actually running that slightly more locked than we do at a lot of places as well. Again, it just helps. It does kind of bring in a little bit of rear locking, but it does provide you with more braking potential, and until you get to the rear locking stage, does provide you with a little bit more stability as well into the corners. Minus 3.3, minus 1.9, 0.02, 0.13 for your camber and toe angles. Again, I don't really tend to change them between the dry and the wet conditions inside F125. They just work quite well for what I like. 36.4 for your front and rear suspension, ever so slightly more neutral than we were running on the dry setup, and then at 5.9 on your anti-roll bars. That is a lot higher than what we were running, or a lot firmer, I should say, than what we were running in the dry. The same can be said for the ride height as well. 25.51 here. We did have the car really low on the dry set, but in the wet, you obviously want it to be able to go over the bumps a little bit easier. I find it just makes the car a little bit more stable as well, and of course, top speed isn't as much of a problem either. So you can run it a little bit higher. You're better off sacrificing a little bit of theoretical time just to look at the tyres and everything like that. 55.96 on the brake pressure and bias. Again, this is actually very, very low of what I normally run inside the game. I'm running slightly more front brake bias because you will lock the rears a bit more. So to combat that, I've moved the brake pressure down, so it should make it less likely that you lock up. It kind of is weirdly compromised, but gives you the best of both worlds as best as you can. In terms of tyres, 28.4 PSI on the fronts, 22.1 on the rears, actually slightly higher rear PSI than we were running in the dry. China in the wet is a definite one-stop, so you want to take them ideally to about lap 14. If you're feeling really brave, you could try a no-stop it, but I wouldn't recommend it because, you can gain quite an advantage by being on a fresh set of tyres as well, but ultimately you just won't gain enough to try and two-stop this Grand Prix as well there. But hopefully this setup helps you out. If it does, please do make sure you drop us a sub, like I said in the intro. Trying to hit 15k here on the channel at the moment. And yeah, we'll be back in a couple of days' time, ready out at Suzuka for the Japanese Grand Prix.
We've only got 2 laps of fuel left. Well, it looks like we'll have this downpour throughout the session. Heavy rain conditions to remain right on through to the end. 2.